Fluffal players took one on the chin recently when the most reasonable landing spots for Frightfur Patchwork, or whatever its TCG name eventually becomes, failed to include it, leaving players in a place of uncertainty for when it will actually be released. While Patchwork is a great card, and even though Link Summoning is now a reality in the TCG, Fluffles are still and will still be competitive in the given environment in the proper build. So let's see what my most recent Fluffle deck looks like. In the monster lineup, the most immediate change is that I run 2 copies of Gofu, which was not available in the initial build for its special summoning ability. In addition to those tokens can be valuable, especially for going first, for providing some form of defensive wall or initial play. Also, in a fusion-centric deck, those tokens can always be used for First of the Dragon summoning. The tuner capacity of Gofu also helps it make level 6 to 9 synchros. And there are a number of synchros that can do something where that synchro monster leaves the field while giving you some form of benefit, freeing up that one extra deck monster zone so that you can make your fusion plays later on. Finally, Gofu helps mitigate a lot of the slowdown associated with Link summoning for this deck, allowing the summons of Mrs. Radiant to the Link zone, allowing for a pair of Frightfur, making OTK easier. Obviously, I still run the 3 copies of Dog, for it is still a high quality monster with that great Stratos effect in addition to being fusion material. Dog also heavily increases the probability of hitting the Wings combo. I run 2 copies of Penguin for both the drawing and chain interruption effect. With Link summoning, gone are the days of running Bahamut and Totally Awesome in your extra deck, so Penguin's water standing is basically worthless now, but that's okay. Penguin is still good, but can clog at 3. Not surprisingly, I run 3 copies of Bear as fusion material and to maximize the probability of the Wings combination. 2 copies of Edge Imp Sabre because of those pesky DD crows and fusion efficiency. In my experience, those who say that 1 copy is sufficient, oof, they must be much luckier than I. I run 2 copies of King of the Swamps because getting polymerization is obviously important. Unfortunately, Link Summoning has taken some of the bite out of the substitution effect because it has limited the value of Frightfur Fusion, and having multiple kings in hand is almost never good. I still run the one owl because consistency purposes with regards to polymerization acquisition. Sometimes you don't have King of the Swamp and you actually have to normal summon owl. 2 copies of Cat for polymerization recovery and chain interruption. That polymerization recovery is exceedingly important now that Link Summoning has come a call-in for getting a Sabre-Tooth on the field, because OTKing is not as simple as it once was. In a sense, I feel Cat should be staple in any Fluffle deck now. Finally, I run 2 copies of Wings because in my experience, 3 copies tends to be inefficient, and running Foolish Burial Goods as a form of Rhoda for this deck limits the availability of toy vendors to use for Wings' combo effect. I run 1 copy of Sheep for both Link summoning Mrs. Radiant and because it acts as a extra body on field for powering up both Tiger and Sabre-Tooth on a Sabre-Tooth into Tiger fusion summons. That extra 300 per Frightfur commonly takes the deck from just short of OTK to OTK. Rounding out the monsters, I run 2 copies of Juragedo for heavily increasing OTK probability for this deck, as well as acting as a form of soft defense, thanks to its special summons from the hand ability. 1 copy of Snow as an easy dump and interruption, or even OTK assistant, and 1 copy of Maxx for obvious reasons. The obvious missing card in this monster lineup, for a number of viewers, is the lack of chain. Whoa there, other Fluffle players. Before you riot, explain to me why I should bother with chain in a non-patchwork TCG world. The only real worthwhile search target for chain going to the hand or field to the graveyard is Frightfur Fusion, and Link Summoning has significantly limited the overall value of Frightfur Fusion. The only Frightfur Fusion that requires chain specifically is Sheep, and Instant Fusion handles that just fine. As I said in my original build, chain is a so-so at best on the field monster, and does not help summoning Tiger, the second most important Frightfur monster behind Saber-Tooth. Some might argue that cards like Factory or Reborn are useful enough, but I don't agree. Reborn is not that helpful because of a lack of effects, and it is rather rare when you have a poly in hand and a material, but need that extra Frightfur for a Saber-Tooth. And Link Summoning has heavily reduced the value of Factory, in my opinion. Finally, the value of using Chain in a fusion summons for Kraken is not that valuable, in my opinion, because while Kraken into Saber-Tooth and Kraken is 8,000 damage, to OTK, it obviously requires the opponent either to have 0 monsters on the field or every monster on their field has to be in attack position with a combined attack of 0. Yeah, not that probable. Overall, the old bread and butter of Tiger into Saber-Tooth and Tiger is still the principal play for this deck, and Tiger requires Saber, not Chain. So again, if you disagree with the lack of Chain, tell me why it's worth it in a non-patchwork world. When patchwork comes out, then Chain becomes very important. But before patchwork, I don't see it. For the spells, I run the obvious 3 copies of Polymerization. Some people like to run 2 copies of Polymerization, 1 fusion substitute. I don't understand that strategy because fusion substitute does not let you use materials from the hand, and that's a pretty big negative in my book, especially when playing Fluffal. Yeah, occasionally you'll get that extra draw, but overall, the ability and versatility of using materials from hand is infinitely better with that third polymerization than that occasional draw and the general usefulness of that draw that you'll get off of Fusion Substitute. I run 2 copies of Instant Fusion for both Sheep and other extra deck playmaking opportunities. 1 copy of Raigeki for field clearance and eliminating potential problem monsters. 1 copy of Foolish Burial for dumping Wings, Snow, or Edge Imp to dramatically increase combo and playmaking probability. I run 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods as a form of Rhoda for dumping toy vendors. 3 copies clog too much for my taste, especially due to that hard once per turn limit, as well as they get in the way of your Wings Graveyard combo. You do want to hit your Wings Graveyard combo, so you don't want too many Foolish Burial Goods dumping all those toy vendors to the graveyard. I run 1 copy of Upstart Goblin because, as mentioned earlier, Tiger into Saber-Tooth and Tiger is still the principal money combination of this deck, and with a third Fluffal on the field, the extra 1,000 that your opponent gains from Upstart really doesn't matter. Consistency is the name of the game, and Upstart does help consistency. I run 1 copy of 1 for 1 for getting Wings on the field to set up the combo after a polymerization, or a Cat to recycle a polymerization. Finally, I run 1 copy of Book of Moon and 1 copy of Book of Eclipse for protecting Tiger from non-counter-based negation effects like Breakthrough Skill or Forbidden Chalice. Cat and Penguin allow you to dodge things like Solemn Strike, but they don't do anything to help you against Breakthrough Skills. In addition, both book cards provide interruption against the opponent and help break the quote unquote negation board so that then you can make your Tiger, make your Saber-Tooth play. For my extra deck, I run 1 First of the Dragons, 3 Frightfur Sabre-Tooth. I used to think that 2 copies was okay, free up that extra 1 extra deck spot, but I run 3 copies now because in Link Summoning, Saber-Tooth is very important for recycling damage pushes, as one of the worst things this deck can experience is an extra deck summon Saber-Tooth just sitting in the extra deck monster zone. For example, let's say it gets Breakthrough Skilled, so it didn't get to summon that Tiger or Sheep or whatever back from the graveyard, so you have an extra damage push. Now you're just sitting there with a 2800 Saber-Tooth that might be able to be defeated by battle, might not, but Fluffals don't have a lot of main deck power, so you want as many Saber-Tooths as possible in the extra deck so that you can break out a polymerization using that first Saber-Tooth to summon a second Saber-Tooth and then get that second Saber-Tooth's graveyard effect. 1 Frightfur Kraken. In my opinion, Kraken has just replaced Wolf, but still serves the general OTK purpose. Basically, you only need one because when you're putting Kraken on the field, you better be thinking to yourself, all right, it's over. I'm just going to attack, win the duel right here. Two Frightfur Tiger, two Frightfur Sheep, 1,000 Eyes Restrict, one PSY-Framelord Omega. You can summon it with any three and Gofu. Able to jump out of the way to set up a future polymerization play during that same turn. One Black Rose Dragon, board clearer. Usually it's made after you search polymerization with Owl. One Coral Dragon, Gofu plus Wings combination, and the potential to discard a toy vendor from hand, setting up your next play, because unfortunately Coral cannot eliminate itself. One Gagaga Cowboy for work with largely with Snow and a level 4 Fluffal, or Snow and a Juragedo, and one Mrs. Radiant. I don't highly value Link monsters in this build, but I feel that having one copy of Mrs. Radiant is important. In the end, Fluffals are still a high quality deck if they do not run into Dimensional Barrier. But gone are the days of consistently dropping 3 or 4 fusion monsters and inflicting 15,000 damage to the opponent. When looking at, I guess, what could be regarded as the meta or popular build here, we see a very different build from mine. I feel the deck needs smarter choices like Juragedo and the books to supplement the attack power and the smaller field flooding of the deck. In a sense, I feel the whole Fluffal plus engine strategy that a lot of people here have run is actually the wrong way of taking Fluffals and might be the reason why Fluffals did not produce anywhere near the success they probably should have for how quality they seem on paper and in theory. Thus, it first consisted of brilliant Fluffals, then it was brilliant Zodiac Fluffals, now it's brilliant Zodiac Predaplant Fluffals, and coming into a link format, it just produces too many bricks versus the benefit that these engines were thought to produce. Also, these engines actually seem just to get in the way of the overall efficiency of the deck. Sure, they definitely get polymerization more consistently than my build, but with the lack of Fluffal fuel and OTK power, where are they actually going? In a sense, this build reminds me of that Simpsons episode where the Mensa members took over and changed all of the lights to yellow because they wanted to speed up traffic flows. And saw an example of that in Lenny, where he reports while begging the light to remain yellow, that he is making great time, but he laments if only he had somewhere to be. And in a sense, by throwing all these engines into Fluffals, you make the deck faster. It makes excellent time, but you heavily limit the value of actually arriving at the destination. Well, that is my updated Fluffal deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.